This is one of the most important aspects in a birth chart, one of the most defining and representative aspects within you that expresses your natal energy. This is also, in my opinion, one of the most misunderstood angles in the birth chart. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects because we sort of have this idea that the ascendant is just kind of how we appear, how we look, the traits that we give off. This is your rising sign also. Some people call this the rising sign. And it is, of course, that. It is our projection. It is how we appear. But the ascendant determines so much more and affects so much more in the birth chart than just your outward appearance. And I'm really going to delve into that today. I'm going to go through all the different signs and I'm going to, go into it all. So I hope that you guys are ready for a nice, long, and hopefully relaxing, enlightening video about a very, very important part of your personality and your energy as a person. Before I get started, though, I so hope that you guys will go over and check out my new ebook, Moon Symbols. I was so lucky to see that get to #1 in new releases, thanks to you guys and thanks to, the Amazon community as well. So check that out. I'll link that below in the description box. It is a guide that goes through your moon sign and helps you to understand your moon sign and heal it, heal your inner moon and heal your lunar energy, as well as understand the people around you through their moon signs. So if you've wanted to understand more about that, I so hope you will go and check that out. Anyway, getting into the ascendant and getting into what this means for us, it's a great time to look at the ascendant. As I'm doing this video, you could be watching it at any time, but it is about to be mid-October and going towards November, and this is a great time actually to work with ascendant energy because we are actually in descendant mode. We are in the darker time of the year. We are moving into shadow time here in the Northern Hemisphere. So this is a really, really wonderful time to see from the other side, to see your ascendant from the opposite point of view. So I hope that you are ready for some shadow work, and I hope you're ready to look at your sign. So I'm going to start just with an introduction of the ascendant, what the angle means, and this is a really important starting point before you look at your individual sign. But there will be a table of contents below for you to click over, because this is probably going to be a very long video and probably going to take us a while to get through each one. But I'm super excited. I'm very comfortable. I have a beautiful cup of coffee here. I hope that you guys do too. If you're interested in astrology, I hope you'll listen to each sign because it's a great place to kind of get a launching pad into the birth chart of somebody else. You can really understand other people and really understand the energy and the preferences and the outlook of other people through understanding their ascendant. So this is, of course, really great for you. And this is first and foremost, you could use this to work on yourself and work on your own energy. But it's also really great to understand the people around you by knowing their ascendant and understanding, again, their outlook. So yeah, let's dive right in, guys. So to kind of introduce you to the ascendant as an angle, as an aspect, yes, it is how you appear, it is how you project, it is what you look like, the impression that you give to other people to a degree, because this is actually the midheaven. The midheaven, the ninth, 10th house cusp, is actually how you appear. Your midheaven sign will speak more of how you appear to other people in life, how you project to other people, than your ascendant. But the ascendant does to a degree too. It's almost like direct strangers would see your midheaven, but people who kind of know you as acquaintances or peers would see your ascendant. And then, people who are close to you as friendships would see your descendant. And then people who are extremely close to you, your closest relationships, the people you've known for 5 years or more, would see your IC or nadir. So those are all of the angles of the birth chart, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th house angles. And they do depict the impressions that we give to other people in our lives, as well as the impressions that we give ourselves and how we interpret ourselves. So the ascendant is the first one. The ascendant is the first self-impression. It is the determining factor of the birth chart. The ascendant, and a lot of people don't know this, but the ascendant sets and calibrates the zodiac wheel in our chart. So the ascendant determines our houses. It determines what sign rules over our houses. You know, the house system is a bit more of an advanced topic in astrology. Some of you may already have knowledge of the house system and how it works, and it might be a more foreign topic. So I'm not going to go into the house system so much, although I will refer to it throughout the video. But if you would like a house system video, hit that thumbs up button, comment below. But basically, the ascendant determines which sign will rule which house in your birth chart. So this completely shifts the personality, almost like a Rubik's Cube. So the ascendant, and as it changes each sign, and you know, if you have a cusp ascendant, it can even differ even a little bit more, as each house, depending on the house system that you use, is smaller in width and will trail through different degrees depending on the degree of your ascendant. So this is where you see personalities like snowflakes. This is why nobody is the same. This is why every personality is different, because every second of every day, through the rising sign, through the sun and the horizon level, there is a slight shift in degree and a shift in the zodiac wheel. So if people are born 1 second apart, they will have very different personalities because of this, because it changes so drastically. As we know with the house system, you know, you have 12 houses in astrology. Again, I'm not going too far into the house system, but it's also a key in understanding the ascendant or any of the angular aspects. So you have 12 houses, and basically, you know, each house is ruled by one of the signs. So on the natural wheel, you start with house 1, Aries. Aries rules the first house naturally, Taurus rules the second house, Gemini rules the third house, so on and so forth. But as you shift through the rising signs, say you have like Taurus Rising, Taurus is going to rule over the first house, Gemini is going to rule over the second house, Cancer is going to rule over the third house. And then you get the combination of the natural rulership and the ascendant rulership. So if you have that Taurus Rising and, you know, Gemini rules over your second house, you'll have that Gemini rulership over the second house, but you'll also have the natural energy of Taurus on the second house. So Gemini and Taurus combine to determine your second house energy. So as it relates to your material world, your financial world, you have the energy of Taurus mixed with Gemini on the second house. So this determines a lot about how you feel towards material and finance if you were a Taurus rising, for example. So these are the subtleties, the complexities of astrology, and each ascendant changes and shifts the energy of the house and the energy of, you know, what we hold in our life, because the houses are basically what we hold, the outlooks that we hold, and the space that we create for different archetypes of life, you know, money, relationships, health, outlooks, philosophies. All of these things have different house rulerships. So it's a little bit complex, and I won't go too much further into house system than that, but we have to understand that the ascendant determines our houses and determines which sign rules over which house, and this is really, really definitive in understanding ourselves or other people. All right. The ascendant is also, yes, it is how we project, it is how we look, but it is where we find our energy source. It is where we start at square one. It is how we need to start projects. Whatever your ascendant sign is how you need to start things. You need, say you have a Scorpio rising, you need to start things as a Scorpio. You need to think, how would a Scorpio start this project, or how would a Scorpio accomplish this? And by starting at the beginning as like a Scorpio, you will have good success, all right? The ascendant is also how we detach from the world too. We have this ascendant-descendant line, the horizon. So the ascendant determines how we experience enough in a situation, how we hit our breaking point, how we decide that we're going to detach and move elsewhere. This is also the descendant as well, but there's a connection between them. So the ascendant, say you have like a Leo rising, you're going to have like very flashy endings. You're going to have like very like glamorous endings. There's going to be like a big impact, and everybody's going to know that you've left a situation. Whereas if you had like something like Pisces rising, you're going to sort of just slip out. You're going to sort of quietly, you know, just flow out of a situation, fluidly leave, and it's not going to be so noticeable. So the ascendant deals a lot with endings, and it deals a lot with beginnings and endings, the ascendant and descendant. The ascendant also determines how we wake up to things in our life, how we experience, coming out of shadow, how we rise, how we ascend. There's that whole popular concept of ascension in spirituality. So the ascendant will really depict what that looks like and what that process is like for you. All right. So I think that kind of sums up the introduction to the ascendant. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I needed to mention before we get into the signs here. Basically, also that the ascendant is not actually as big as some people think. Now, if you have a lot of planets in the first house or on the ascendant line, this is different. Yes, it does determine a lot of personality potential, but then the planets and actual bodies come in to really, evoke in a person. So we have to also remember the ascendant is an angle. It's not an actual placement. There's not an actual body here. This just really sets the template. That's what it is. The ascendant sets the template of your personality, the template of your life. But it does not necessarily really determine how you then energize or how you then evoke in your life. That's going to be where the planets come and then where they fall within the template that the ascendant sets. So that's the important distinction of the ascendant, is that it sets a template and it is a template and nothing more. And this, of course, does have, huge meaning in your life, how the template is set, but it is not like the actual choice or the actual action. So we don't really want to energize too much through it or rely on the ascendant to follow through. It's not a follow through angle, again, unless you have like a planet placed right on the ascendant, and that really changes the game. It's an incredible energy, actually. If you've got like a Pluto on the ascendant, super, super powerful. You could be like the president. You could be, very powerful with Pluto on the ascendant. Or if you have Venus on the ascendant, so beautiful, so attractive, so, archetypally sexy, But yes, the ascendant alone is not the choice. It's not the action. It's not the reality. It's just the template. All right, let's talk about Aries Rising. Let's get into these signs here. So Aries Rising, you have come a long way karmically. You have done right things in the past life. This is one of the best ascendants to have. Any of the fire ascendants, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius Rising, is a sign of good karma. It's a sign of having worked really hard in past lives, and it's a sign of having really come farther. And why is that? That's because the ascendant does really, really good in fire signs because it orients the entire chart to harmonize. So each fire sign has rulership over a fire house. Each water sign has rulership over a water house. It all matches up with the fire rising. So it doesn't necessarily make things naturally easy, but it gives opportunity, and it gives less friction, and it gives less pain, less difficulty. And Aries Rising really is the best because it gives you the natural system. It gives you Aries over the first house, Taurus over the second house, Gemini over the third house, just like the natural zodiac wheel. So if you have Aries Rising, you have a natural opportunity to find harmony. You have a very natural template. This is not a life where you want to live in fake. You do not want to have false experiences. You do not want to have illusory experiences. You probably don't like anything fake in your life. So like fake jewelry, fake clothing, fake friends, all of that's going to be a huge turnoff to you. And you might be thinking, well, isn't that the case for everybody? It is not. There are some signs and some different types of people who really, grow larger and grow feeling more powerful through having fakeness and having illusions around them. So that is not the case for Aries Rising. You want real people, real experiences, real jewelry, real strong quality. So things, your house, you're going to really want to invest in, the best kind of walls, the best kind of doors. You have that incredible Capricorn over the 10th house. This is a lifetime where you can achieve notoriety, nobility, being renowned, being prestigious. This is definitely possible for you. The parents are going to be a specifically huge part of your life because again, this is natural. You've got that Cancer on the 4th house and that Capricorn on the 10th house. So your emotions are going to have been so determined by your family. The family connection for an Aries Rising is a really big deal. In fact, every person that I've ever read for, in a private capacity, a lot of the times the readings are to understand more about the family or to understand how to deal with the family, how to cope from the family, how to get over trauma from the family. because this placement really naturally deals with a bit of family karma. So you could see past life issues with the family, even, you know, siblings, but especially the parents. There's a lot to deal with and a lot to understand. I tend to also see that this rising sign has a lot of, you know, volatility with how they feel about their family. So they can go from, you know, really, really loving and being so connected with the family to suddenly just like falling out with the family, or vice versa. They can go from really like abhorring their family or not connecting at all. And then, you know, one day they just kind of realize, I actually really love my family, or something happens that brings them a lot closer. You know, money is good for Aries rising typically. Again, Taurus rules over the second house, Scorpio over the eighth house. So there's an opportunity to go from rags to riches, or riches to rags. That can happen. It's a little bit volatile, kind of like the family, but it's not extremely volatile. And there's always control. Like, you have financial control as an Aries rising, or you will eventually get there where you're not, you know, feeling that you don't have any power over your money, or that you don't have the ability to get more material success. This placement can feel a little bit insecure with friendships. Aries rising people, if that Gemini third house and Libra seventh house does cause a bit of yearning for platonic connection, actually, for people who are on the same ground, but it's hard to find people on the same ground. It's maybe a little bit difficult, especially before the first Saturn return, before the first 30 years of life. So from age, you know, 10 to 30, it might be very hard to find people who you can relate to, or people who relate to you, but you will start to find that more later in life. This is a soulmate rising, so you will find soulmates and you will find twin flames in your life, but it's evasive. It's not easy, but it is there for you. So that's what Aries rising really has to do, is it has to remember that its time will come. This rising, I would say, struggles the most with timing. It can be a bit of an impatient rising. Again, this is the baby, you know, Aries is the baby sign. It's like the child, the toddler. So it can kind of, you know, slam its hands against the table and say, I want food now, or I want this person now, I want this experience now. And if it doesn't get it, it can like lie on the floor and like cry for a long time. And that's where it does most of its damage as a person, is like overreacting to things because they've not come instantly or immediately. So always just rely and trust in timing as an Aries rising, and you'll be fine. You know, you've got a good ability to cope, and a good ability to you know, heal from, you know, subconscious pain. So the subconscious is well coordinated in Aries. So even if you're struggling on the outside, or if you're sad about something, your brain is well developed for coping and for dealing with all of that. It's usually a pretty good chemical setup too. So yes, Aries rising is one of the better ascendants to have, truly. You know, it's again, that natural template of the house system is really, really good with this rising. So it's a fun life. It's an enjoyable life. You know, Leo ruling over the fifth house. That is such a good party energy, so much fun, so much enjoyment, popularity even. But can you be close to these people, like closer than just, you know, peerage or acquaintanceship? That's really the challenge. So, okay, let's move on to Taurus rising. I like Taurus rising. It's actually a little bit frantic though. You know, you get your Gemini over the second house, so money gets squandered, material gets squandered. You could see that you save everything up, or you are like really wanting to save your money. You're really wanting to save everything. And then somebody comes into your life and you like really spend it all easily to like prove a point. Taurus rising is all about proving points. So it can be a egotistic rising sign. I mean, everybody can be egotistic. So if you're a Taurus rising, don't let that hurt your feelings. It's fine. Sometimes having a big ego is really, really good for, you know, having that business success, or for, you know, learning the lessons, or the karmic cleansing. And you do have a lot of karmic cleansing in your life, as your natural descendant is Scorpio. Seventh house is the Scorpio rulership. So the marriage is going to be a big thing for you. Partnerships, marriages, contact with other people. This is not going to be predictable. This is not going to be necessarily a big source of pain either, but you don't want to try to control it too hard. Again, Taurus rising can present with some control issues for sure. You get that Aquarius over the 10th house, and there's sort of this dogma with Taurus rising. So sometimes you can see that you This person may have been brought up in an extremely religious environment. There's like a void. There's a void of morals. There's a void of dogma sometimes over these people. Sagittarius ruling over the 8th house. That's a hard thing for this rising sign because they really, really want to have so much. They can really put so much pressure on themselves to have everything, to have, you know, the nice car, the nice house, all the money, all the friends, all the relationships. But it fluctuates so much. The resources fluctuate so much. There are issues with other people's money, other people's resources, other people's belongings, and Taurus Rising has to really work hard to remain sovereign over their own lives. At the same time, there's a natural communicative ability with Taurus Rising, so this is where you have your biggest strength, is in your voice and in your ability to communicate. We have Cancer ruling over the 3rd house, and Taurus looking the part of a Taurus. So I bet that you talk really softly. I bet you have a beautiful voice. I bet that you have the ability to sell ice to an Eskimo, or the ability to calm anybody in any situation. So yes, careers where you heal with your voice, or, you know, radio personalities or TV personalities can even be possible with this placement, definitely. You do have Leo ruling over the 4th house, so I imagine the parental structures must have been very domineering and very dominant, just a very maybe fight for dominance within the household, which can skew the Taurus Rising individual's perception of what control is, of what power is, of what strength is. So I always urge Taurus Rising people to really work on their ideas of power and strength and control, because once they can really release from the way that they learned what these things were, that's when they really step into those powers. So Taurus Rising, it can't try too hard, okay? It can't like you know, be necessarily the like mastermind behind the entire plot. This is a sign and a person who actually incarnated in to understand life's pleasures, to walk through life without having to, like, you know, make their brain work really hard, without having to strategize every single move. But the difficulty with this rising sign is that it might think that it has to try too hard. It might think, okay, I've really got to plan this out. I've really got to strategize. I've really got to figure out, how do I move forward? How do I do this? And it might really overthink every single move. But this rising sign needs to actually fly by the seat of its pants a little bit more. It needs to get out of its head when it comes to control. And it needs to just exist because it is beautiful. It is so attractive. Libra on the 6th house. Everything that you do, every mundane action is sexy. It's beautiful. It's attractive. Everybody wants a piece of it. So, but having Scorpio on the 7th house, you might have so many different marriages, either just one marriage or like 5 marriages, probably nothing in between. Because you will also see that the person that you marry, or the person that you really become loyal to, that you really contract with, they're going to be more intense than you expected. They're going to perhaps be a bit of a control freak, which is not actually that terrible for you, because again, you need somebody else to sort of be doing the mastermind stuff. So yes, falling in love with a Scorpio or a Capricorn or a Cancer even could be good, because you kind of want someone that will handle all of the minute details so that you can kind of just walk through life. This is like a sign that tends to be like a housewife or even a house husband, because this isn't a rising sign that needs to really be self-sufficient. And that's an odd thing to say, because I'm all about self-sufficiency. I'm all about that, because never do we want to allow somebody to control us, or allow somebody to, you know, decide our lives for us. But this sign needs to have somebody else. It needs to have teamwork. It needs to have people who it can trust to help it through in a positive way. And it's not codependent, because it can struggle with codependency too, but it needs to have somebody who it trusts to help it through life. So finding trustable people is a big thing for this sign, and it will find it easier than it thinks. It can find that trust with a lot more ease and a lot more, you know, mobility than it might anticipate. It can also, just struggle with discomfort. Aries on the 12th house, so the subconscious mind is Mars ruled, so it's hot, it's frigid, it's sharp. The inner world of Taurus can be uncomfortable. It can have like this burning sensation at all times. That just means it needs to make a change. That just means it needs to allow other people in, and it needs to sacrifice a bit of control. All right. So Taurus Rising, you're beautiful. Everybody wants you. You have really good opportunities for strong, loyal partnerships. Be picky. Be picky with who you let in. Accept that you are gorgeous. Accept that people are attracted to you. This is never a sign that is going to be seen as ugly or seen as unattractive or seen as peculiar. Like this, people want to be with Taurus Rising. It's a very attractive rising sign. So use that in a way that does not encourage codependency, but that does encourage people to come and help. You know, Taurus Rising, it's a sign that in a past life you helped a lot of people. Now it's your turn to be helped. So do not, as a Taurus Rising, refuse or reject help. That's a really important thing. That's probably the biggest problem area for Taurus Rising, is to reject helping hands. Don't do that. All right. Gemini Rising. Let's see. Gemini Rising is another good one. It's not a fire rising sign, which are really the most lucky, most benevolent rising signs to have. But Gemini Rising gives a pretty good, solid, tangible energy spectrum to work with. What sticks out to me about Gemini Rising is, the hidden things. So a lot of people don't know this about Gemini, and this is one of the secrets of the way the house system orients itself with Gemini Rising. There are so many secrets to be delved through. There are so many hidden agendas. There are so many duplicitous people that you might come into contact with. And this is sort of like the life of a psychological thriller. You might see like the protagonist of, most psychological thriller books, movies, whatever, might have Gemini Rising, because this really orients the house system to work in covert ways. So having the 8th house ruled by Capricorn, having the 10th house ruled by Pisces, having the 6th house ruled by Scorpio, the 2nd house ruled by Cancer. All of the dark houses are really concentrated and energized in a way that is multiplicative. It's exponential. Having that Scorpio in the 6th house, every day for a Gemini Rising is actually going to be potentially quite occult or quite spiritual. And we don't think of Gemini this way. And this is where what you see is not what you get, definitely, with this rising sign, because this rising sign, it looks like happy-go-lucky. It looks adventurous. It looks honest. It looks even perhaps not the most intelligent or not the most smart, but that is not true. This is one of the most intelligent, most smart, most lingual rising signs to have. You have Leo over the 3rd house, so oh my god, you are a master communicator. You are perhaps bilingual or polyglot. You are you command a group of people. When you speak, everybody looks. So this is a well-developed throat chakra. Gemini Rising, it looks like a good communicator, even if it's not. Like, you might not know the meaning of duplicitousness, but everybody thinks that you're like, the most learned, masterfully speaking person. So moving on with that, this gives the opportunity for someone to be a spy, to be a covert agent, to be, a billionaire while looking like a very average middle class. What you see is not what you get with Gemini Rising. So yes, this sign also sets itself up to be alone because of this. So you might see that you are really wanting connection with people, but then people come in and they get freaked out because they are shocked by their own experience of you. You might attract in people who are really needing a wake-up call that they're not completely in control. So if you attract in control freaks, they will really freak out when they see who you actually are, because it's not going to have been what they expected. You can have so many love affairs with Gemini Rising because Libra has ruled over the 5th house. So this is, again, a very sexy energy. Scorpio over the 6th house. The sex drive is something that can be your greatest asset or your greatest problem. This can create the energy of like sexual addiction, because again, the Scorpio rulership over the sixth house, the sixth house, if I could talk, guys, channel through some of this Gemini energy. The sixth house is the house of everyday, every second routine, mundane events, health. So putting Scorpio over that means that a lot of your health is going to come from the reproductive system, and your everyday is going to deal with like attraction and, you know, wanting to have a sexual release. So that is something that Gemini Rising really has to get control of, is its power through its sexuality. Because that can spin out of control, or it can take Gemini Rising to the top. So yes, this is like the energy of the casting couch, or you know, prostitution even, you can see with Gemini Rising. And it doesn't mean that that's guaranteed, but you know, it's not hard for Gemini Rising to see things from so many different perspectives. You know, some people might see like really dark things, like, you know, careers of the night, or you know, a porn star, whatever it is, and they might have like a very strong moral rejection of that. But Gemini Rising would be able to see it from different perspectives, and attune themselves to anything, which can be good, it can be bad. This is not necessarily a good or bad. This is very much a neutral trait. So yeah, Gemini Rising is a very neutral experience of life, where you know, you could see the plus side to being extremely poor or homeless, or the negative side to being extremely wealthy, or extremely, you know, capable. This rising sign also has really great healing abilities one way or another. Again, that Scorpio over the sixth house, you know, it could manifest as like a porn star, or like the best psychologist in the modern era, like you know, Jungian types of people, or Freudian types of people. I'm not sure what their placements were. I'd have to look at their charts, but a Gemini Rising can evoke the same type of thing. So it's also great for acting, great for performances. Pisces on the 10th house, you can fluidly adapt to any role. You can be seen as anything. You can be seen as everything. I would so encourage these people to pursue acting, or to pursue some type of adaptable career. You don't want a career that's normal, average, and typical, mundane. Again, that Scorpio over the sixth house, it's going to really feel unchanneled if you're like working as like a survey research center call telemarketer or something. Not so good for this rising sign. It needs to do something a little bit eccentric. And most likely you'll meet a lot of eccentric people. Sagittarius on the 7th house means that you will marry someone who's very eccentric, someone who's very abnormal, somebody who drastically alters your philosophy on life too. But you have to definitely watch out for the finances. So if you're a Gemini who was born very wealthy or has many things, make sure that you're using prenups. Make sure that you are not gambling with your belongings, because you could see that it just all flows away very quickly. And you could see that people really want what you have. There could be a lot of jealousy. So Gemini Rising, it's a complex one, but it's a good rising sign. There's natural energy, not the energy of illness at all. Naturally healthy body, naturally attractive, healthy skin, Virgo over the 4th house, you have good pickiness over what goes in your body, over your emotions. Your emotions do not control you as a Gemini Rising. If you think that they do, it's just because you're trying to act out a part. Virgo over the 4th house is a great placement. If anything, you could feel a little bit more, actually, because there is maybe a tendency to repress, or a tendency to hyper control the way that you feel about things. But this can actually not be so bad during the current paradigms of the current transits till about 2023. Virgo Rising is Virgo over the 4th house is a great energy to have, because you're not going to get overwhelmed emotionally if you don't want to be. So remember that power, Gemini, to, you know, parse out your emotions and to choose your health, because that is something that you have ultimate power over. Okay, Cancer Rising. I love Cancer Rising. It's a complicated rising sign, though. This is one of the harder ones, guys. It means that you have a lot of lessons, and it means that there are a lot of emotional changes, a lot of emotional experiences to grow through with Cancer Rising. A lot of people interpret this as like big parental problems or big issues with mother, big issues with the house, the home. Not so much, not necessarily. That's more of a projection for Cancer rising, as you do have Libra ruling over the fourth house. So yes, there might have been arguments, there may have been conflicts, there may have been indecision, but that is not necessarily where the root of your trauma comes from as a Cancer rising. Actually, the root of your trauma comes from the indifference of other people. So people not acknowledging your emotions, people not seeing your emotions, people not understanding why you feel the way that you do, and people not prioritizing it. So indifferent people are the big problem for Cancer risings. Struggling to find a niche, struggling to find people who understand them. That is the only problem, really, is, and that's where the learning lesson comes through, is through solitude and through solitary experiences, because as Cancer rising moves through life, it sees, wow, people are not getting me. I have to get myself. And once they start to get themselves, once they start to lend themselves a helping hand and really look within, really see where their pain is, that's when this ascendant becomes so powerful. This ascendant has to be careful with what it considers fun and what it does for fun. It has the Scorpio rulership over the fifth house. So children, love affairs, creativity, party time, funness in life, these things can bring with them way more than we expect. So yes, this Cancer rising can be accidental pregnancies. There is a prone, the women are prone to accidental pregnancies, as well as the men are prone to, accidentally making someone pregnant. It's very, very fertile. Okay, this energy reproduces very easily. So whether we're thinking of children, creative projects, anything that they do in life can blow up really quickly. That is because we put the energy of Aquarius over the eighth house. So the secret to blowing up big, to being collectively popular, to creating so much is seen and interpreted by Cancer rising. Cancer rising knows the secrets to life. Cancer rising has the codes, it has the formulas. Y'all freak me out in that way. You put that Uranus energy into the eighth house, and you're like really bringing the secret energy of Scorpio and Pluto into the tangible world and into your minds, into your sense of fun. So this rising can have fun like no others. They really can enjoy life, and life can be a roller coaster for them. But they want safety is the only thing. So that's not going to satisfy and please them forever. But I always recommend that Cancer rising really get in touch with how much fun they can have. If Cancer rising isn't having fun, forget about it. Like, you're not going to find inspiration. You're not going to find motivation. If you don't enjoy your job at all, if you don't, make time for getting together with funny, humorous people, if you don't make time for sexual release, even, big problems. Okay, Scorpio in the fifth house. We have to watch out for addictive substances. We have to watch out. Pisces over the ninth house, for example, maybe there's a philosophy that, drinking or drugging or whatever it is, that's not actually something that's bad. That's something that can help me. Maybe it's ayahuasca, maybe it's whatever, all these substances. So substances, Cancer rising, forget about them, get over them, find substance in yourself. This is an escapist rising sign sometimes, not all the time. It's either the person who's so against it or so for it. There's no in between. It's black and white. Watch out for people who are trying to convince you of something, period. So people who are trying to give your life substance, people who are trying to give your life sustenance. People will try to convince you of odd things in your lifetime. You have to be able to see through it. You don't want to be too impressionable. Okay, we have Pisces on the 10th house. We have Sagittarius on the 6th house, which can be indoctrination. This can be the energy of dogma. This can be the energy of religious cults that are very dark but very convincing. You are maybe, indoctrinated into some type of dogmatic religious experience because you think it just represents like the separation of church and state or something, when you don't actually realize that it's actually some horrendous satanic cult that just wants to have bloodshed. You have to not be childish in what you sign yourself up for. Okay, we have Libra on the 4th house. These are the ties that bind. Sorry guys, I just hit the microphone. These are the ties that bind. These are the contracts that are hard to get out of. Okay, so Yes, you know, like blood ritual, things like this. Cancer risings can be indoctrinated into these things, perhaps from early on, and they have to get themselves out of it. It has no place in their lives. It has no place whatsoever for Cancer rising because you are being used. Cancer rising, it can be defiled and used for its abundant energy. It's fun, loving, enjoyable, grand, great energy. All right. Cancer rising, you have to be your own advocate. You can't be codependent or controlled by other people, but it's so easy. I know maybe you're in it, maybe you just got out of it and you can see it. But Cancer rising, you have to really be your own person. Just because these people or this person or this darkness is offering you a place or offering you a communion or a community, it doesn't mean it's good. So this is definitely a rising sign that can embrace anything which will embrace it. And once Cancer rising can learn to love itself and give itself that substance by making space for itself, it becomes immune to these falsely attractive embraces that are out to trick Cancer and use Cancer rising. So it's a darker rising sign. This is probably the darkest rising sign actually to have, full of the darkest experiences, but it's through that reality that the lightest experiences are also inevitable. We have Taurus ruling over the 11th house with a Cancer rising. So, oh my God, you can be so popular. You know, you could be a successful politician. You could be loved. You could be admired. You could be famous. You could be a celebrity. You could be, you know, with Leo on the second house, you could make money from your reputation, from your prestige as a person, from your stage, but only once you get past the codependence with the darkness, okay? And one good thing about Cancer rising, though, is it does not fear darkness, which is really important, and that's one of the reasons that it can get so entangled in it, is because it doesn't fear the darker aspects of life, and it is through those aspects that it can heal and that it can heal other people. But it has to really be careful about getting too intertwined with it, because what is more beautiful for Cancer rising is actually the light, is the contrast, because the projection and the beginning starts at dark. So Cancer must work towards moving to the light, and it must work towards helping other people and helping you know, people in worse situations, donating. The energy of charity is really, really good. You know, the energy of helping the less privileged or helping, you know, your average person is good for Cancer rising. And also the energy of being helped, kind of like Taurus rising. This rising sign has to allow people to help it without succumbing to being a pawn in dark people's game. Okay? That sounds a little bit depressing, I know, because Cancer rising, you can have the most fun, you can have the most beauty, you can have the most splendor. You just have to choose that, okay? You have to choose that, and then the light will come. Through that x-ray vision that you have really good x-ray vision. Know what is dark, know what is light, trust your intuition. Don't let salespeople convince you that, you know, certain things are what they obviously are not. This sign can just be too convinced by the wrong people. So find the right people, you'll know them. It's all on you, Cancer. It's all on you. If you're an adult, Cancer, it's all on you. You got this. You know what to do. Just keep moving, keep strong. You are the light. You are the capability for everybody else. Anyway, Leo rising. Okay, this is a good one. We love Leo rising. Leo rising is a great, great ascendant to have. It's a fire ascendant. If you have Leo rising, you've done something right. You've lived out a past life and struggled and helped and been charitable and put others before you. And now you have been incarnated in this life to be served and to serve, okay? But especially to be served. Leo rising is a powerful, powerful rising sign to have. It is probably actually the best ascendant to have because it is the sun, right? The sun determines the rising sign. So the sun, with the movements of Earth around the sun and the sun's motion throughout the sky, this determines the rising sign. And Leo is ruled by the sun, so there's a really, really great combination here. But oh my gosh, is this an intense lifetime? This is not a boring lifetime. This is not a slow lifetime. This is not a mundane or menial lifetime for the most part. People who come into your life serve huge, huge lessons, serve huge, huge experiences, vibrant shooting star experiences everywhere. Your life is like a shooting star. Everything's shining, everything's dazzling, everything's an explosion. and you can be drained very, very easily. Okay, so what is special about Leo rising? Well, this is the energy of a celebrity. This is the energy of fame. This is the energy of prestige, renown, accomplishments, and the energy of scrutiny. Okay, Leo rising is about scrutiny. Leo rising is about being extremely perfectionist. Okay, extremely hard on yourself. All right. What do I want to talk about first with Leo rising? Okay, so we have Scorpio on the 4th house. Huge deal. Scorpio on the IC, this is a deeply psychic, deeply occult. I don't like the word occult a lot of the time, but deeply occult, deeply spiritual, deeply traumatized energy, deeply dark. So people will never see it. People will never see your sadness or your angst or your fear. Right. So people will see you as having a very easy life. People will see you as spoiled. People will see you and be jealous of you. Taurus on the midheaven with the mixture of Leo rising. This person from the outside looks very royal, very noble. So perhaps very served. So it really inspires envy. It really inspires jealousy. And guess what? That jealousy comes from the people closest to you. You have Aquarius on the 7th house. So people who don't know you really don't care that much or know. But the people who are close to you, the people who are closer to your life, yeah, they're jealous of you. And you're going to have to accept that. And it's not always going to be the case. You will find at different stages of your life, like long-term relationships of people who defy this and people who are not jealous of you. But get ready, and some of you may resonate with this. The people especially that you get romantically involved with will be very attracted to what you have. This is so possible for people to be a gold digger, like to, even if you don't feel like you have that much, even if you're not super wealthy, or if you're not like a billionaire or something, people will want you for what you have, not who you are. Taurus on the midheaven, Leo rising, Sagittarius on the 5th house. What you see is not what you get. This Leo rising looks so like happy-go-lucky, spontaneous, you know. Aries on the 9th house, you know, great philosophical excitement. This person knows how to party. This person knows how to have a good time. This person knows how to attract benevolence into their lives. And people will want a piece of that. And people will get very upset when they can't have all that you have. Because people think that you've gotten what you've gotten as a Leo rising for free. So again, this is the energy of royalty. This is the energy of nobility. So it's like hereditary. People think that what you've gotten, you've just like absorbed. You've just been given. You know, the king or the queen has given you everything that you have achieved, and you've never had to work for anything. Okay? But this rising sign has Capricorn on the 6th house. So this rising sign works so freaking hard. Okay. And people never see it though, because this is right on the horizon. You put the, you know, Capricorn, Aquarius onto the horizon line, and the hard work that you do is going to be alone. It's going to be by yourself, and no one's going to see it, and no one's going to credit you with that hard work. People are just going to think, oh, this person gets everything for free. So spoiled, so you know, undeserving. You know, people will judge what you have really, really hard. People will scrutinize what you have. So Leo rising may have a desire to really flaunt their wealth, or to, you know, look the part, look like the noble person, look like the royal person. But they need to watch out for this, because it will attract a lot of dissension from other people. If you have a let them eat cake type of attitude, you will get pulled down really quickly as a Leo rising. The people will revolt, per se. So you have to be humble. Capricorn on the 6th house, even Taurus on the midheaven. The earth signs play an interesting role. Virgo on the 2nd house. You have to really control your finances. You have to really control your appearance. You have to really control how you express your wealth, or your lack of wealth, or your credit. All of these things have to be very rigidly controlled. Otherwise, it could get out of control. You could accidentally gamble away all your money. You could run up more credit than you'll ever make in your life. Impulsive money decisions are really big red flags with this energy. Sagittarius in the 5th house can want to, you know, buy rounds of drinks for every person in the bar. You know, it can want to, you know, buy somebody a car or gift somebody a luxury vacation just to be, you know, jovial and be like nice and giving. So it can be overly charitable to a fault. It can also be philanthropic to look royal or to look noble or to look like, you know, like Princess Diana or something. It can want to like look like that. So yeah, this rising sign can actually get a little bit skewed with its appearance and how it comes off. Like it can get way too attached to like looking a part versus actually being. So it has to like strive for substance. It has to strive for reality, and then it has to release. So we have Pisces ruling over the 8th house, and if you put like planets into that Pisces 8th house, or you know, something heavy there, these are the lifetimes that your soul goes through where letting go and release are definitive. So what you see in the rear view mirror, what you let go of, what you lose, what you detach from, these things are very, very definitive in who you are as a person, and will define you in so many ways. The definition, that's the word that keeps coming to my mind, the definition through lack or through loss, as well as how the appearance of things or the illusion of things play into that, how you've led on, how you've appeared. Is it who you actually are? This rising sign can be oddly duplicitous and oddly shifty and not really know it about itself. The Pisces 8th house as well as the Cancer 12th house, shifting those two signs up together in like a mutual reception, or the sort of watery mutual reception that is within this rising sign, and all the fire rising signs, it creates a sense of what is making me feel good, what is making me feel authentic, what is making me feel right, doesn't look like what I want it to look like, or doesn't come off in the right way. So that's the frustration of Leo rising, because this rising is gifted. This rising has a lot of benevolence. It has a lot of luck. This is a lucky rising sign, you know, winning the lottery, being chosen, being scouted on the streets for some great career. This is a lucky fire rising sign. But yeah, there's a price to pay for sure. Your soul paid a big price for being a Leo rising, because it comes with a lot of privileges. So yeah, you got to really work on making who you actually are and what you lead on to be congruent. It's a big thing with this rising sign. It's a big karma cleansing activity for this rising sign, and that's a great thing to strive for. Like, am I who I think I am? You might have a lot of dreams about looking a certain way. You might have a lot of, you're walking around the house late at night and you're feeling a little bit like manic, or you're feeling a little bit, over the top. And you're kind of like, I want to look this way. I want to wear this type of clothing. I want to give off this kind of persona, when what you're walking around as is actually something quite ill, or quite distressed, or quite antithetical to that. So that we've got to really watch out for that. That's a really expensive energetic thing to take on very often. And then there's also the possibility for health problems with Leo rising. It's just so much stress, it's so much pressure. So endocrine problems. It's not the worst rising sign for health. It's okay. It can heal very well. Again, Scorpio over the 4th house, it gives good regenerative ability. So even if you do get quite ill, you can usually heal from it. But it's usually self-inflicted. So self-inflicted wounds with Scorpio on the 4th, again, it kind of just over intensifies that natural Cancer energy, the family house, the home, the especially for the Pluto and Scorpio generation. So having Pluto in the 4th house, as many of us do. I don't remember exactly what years Pluto was in Scorpio, but if you were born in like the 80s or the 90s, most likely you have Pluto in Scorpio at a certain period of time. It's like in the mid 90s, Pluto went into Sag. So if you were born like 1995 and earlier, through around 1984, I want to say it's somewhere around there, or early 80s, you would have Pluto in Scorpio. That's putting Pluto into the 4th house for all Leo risings born between those years. So destruction of the home, destruction of the family, destruction of the family unit, destruction of the feeling of safety, the feeling of protectedness, constant feelings of unsafeness, constant feelings of disposal, constant feelings of not knowing who to trust, self-hatred, self-sabotage, disease, all of these things, skin problems, not feeling comfortable in your skin, not feeling capable. These are all things that Leo risings within those years could struggle with, and you have to overcome that and really operate through the 8th and 12th house, Cancer and Pisces energy, to overcome that, and again, release, letting go of, accepting, moving on with your passions, and making congruent what you think you are versus what you actually are, because you can kind of find yourself living in a few different paradigms with this ascendant. You can look the part for anything. It's kind of a chameleon. You could be living a lot of different lives and really making your energy expensive. So anyway, yeah, Leo rising, great placement. Gemini on the 11th house, super popular, super, has the right connections everywhere. Really easy to make connections and network. A lot of celebrities have Leo rising. A lot of, some of the most famous, infamous people in the world have Leo rising, and that's because of that Gemini on the 11th house, really making so many easy networking connections with people in the right places. So, but really work on yourself, work on foraging yourself, work on having substance to yourself, because you can really give everything away to these connections that can be a little bit dark and mysterious. So, yeah, Leo rising, good placement, heavy placement, expensive placement, but yeah, flashy life, really good. Virgo rising. Let's talk about Virgo rising now. Oh, it's such a sigh of relief. It's such a things get easier. Things get easier at Virgo rising. We've come through Leo rising, and even though Leo rising is a great ascendant to have, it's overwhelming a little bit. So Virgo rising, things get easier, things get more natural, things get more earthy. This type of person who has Virgo rising is going to really pursue natural medicine, natural living. You're going to want to always wear like real clothing. What do I mean? So like real materials, no like plasticky, polyester, scratchy materials. You're going to want to wear really nice things. You're going to want to be surrounded by nature. You're going to want to be surrounded by control, surrounded by an environment that you can control. You've got to feel like your life is fun as a Virgo rising. Something that Virgo rising underestimates, because this is the sign of working. Virgo is the natural 6th house. This is the sign of, task mastery. This is the sign of getting things done, of accomplishing. Sagittarius is your 4th house as a Virgo. And this means that having an innate sense of fun, spontaneity, and freedom, messiness even, is imperative to your life. So as a Virgo rising, you would make a big mistake to think that everything needs to be perfectly organized, everything needs to be perfectly put together, everything needs to be perfectly mastered. No, you have to have an element of messiness in your life. And if you don't, it's going to really overtake you, and things are going to get really gross. So you might inherit like houses that are ruined, or you might inherit really gross, nasty things if you can't accept some degree of imperfection into your life. So Virgo combats the concept of imperfect, right? Virgo rising, dealing with that which is imperfect, dealing with the human condition, dealing with the tougher realities of life. This is what this rising sign is very connected to. So yeah, you have a great love potential. Pisces over the 7th house, you could have a super majorly charged romance a few times in your life even, the types of things that they make movies about, like romances that you see in the movies, that you see in the books. You could definitely attract in these types of fated romances into your life. Taurus on the 9th house, I like that a lot too. So you get a nice philosophical jaunt in your life, a nice philosophical enjoyment. Enjoying to see the bigger picture, enjoying to maybe study. Academics really good for Virgo rising. You need to be studying something. You need to be allowing knowledge in, as Taurus does rule your 9th house, which is all about passivity and letting things in, gaining wealth, gaining standing. And the 9th house is about academics. It's about politics. It's about philosophy. So that's going to be a big part of your life, is expanding through those ideas. You have, Cancer on the 11th house, Leo on the 12th house. There's a sense of things only getting halfway done. There's a sense of things only getting, to a certain point and then failing. Yes, this is the hard part of Virgo rising, is you might get halfway done with something and lose interest. Very mutable mindset on accomplishing. And the true test for Virgo rising is to finish what they start. They have to really work on that, because they will get some incredible karmic insight through completing and through overcoming and through connecting to what they have finished, okay? So a great to start running, great to start working on your endurance. This rising sign operates best through endurance and staying power. So really work on that. Really work on, maybe running a marathon or building up to run, a half marathon or something is good because you have a good burst of energy. Sagittarius on the 4th house, Aries on the 8th house. Your fire signs rule your water houses. So there's a big like emotional connection and a big like, oh my God, I know what I have to do with my life, but then it like can fizzle out quite quickly. So work on the endurance as a Virgo rising and you will achieve much more success. Aquarius on the 6th house, there's going to be an idea of unconventional living, okay? So putting Uranus into the 6th house, or the energy of Uranus, will make the tried and true, typical lifestyle, typical Virgo, task mastery is not going to be right. And that's the tender point of this rising sign, is that, it is Virgo rising. So you have the energy of the natural 6th house at your starting point of your chart. But your actual 6th house is ruled over Uranus energy of Aquarius, which is scattering, volatile, unconventional, different. So you're never going to really be able to access that task mastery perfectionist vibe of Virgo unless you've got a huge Virgo stellium in your 1st house. It will be easier. But accepting the unconventional, molding your life and lifestyle towards something that is just right for you, is the magic of that combination. But you can also get very frustrated and like slam your hands against the table and say, I won't accept this, and create a lot of like karmic backlash for yourself by not just molding your life to what you want and what you need it to be. So accept the unconventional and you'll be fine as a Virgo rising. Allow yourself to have fun. Capricorn over the 5th house, you might be a little bit too doom and gloom. You might be a little bit too much of a hard worker. You might be too workaholic. Not going to work for Virgo rising. They will all have an encounter with being a workaholic or putting too much energy, too much effort into something, and they will see that that is definitely not going to work either. Illness can come, bad tax problems, bad income problems if Virgo is not having some amount of fun or not having some amount of freedom and liberty and unconventional lifestyle. They've really got to give that to themselves. So that's your key, Virgo rising, is to make it a little bit more unconventional and stay healthy within that, for sure. Okay, Libra rising. Libra rising is very attractive. This is one of the, hottest, most attractive rising signs. So if you've been born with Libra rising, you have a lot of karmic lesson to learn about what you attract into your life, what you pull in, and what you choose to accept. So magnetizing someone or something into your life, it gives you an opportunity. It's sort of like a riddle, and you then sort of solve the riddle, or you choose to accept or decline. So Libra rising is actually quite a pragmatic rising sign to have. You are very responsible, very, able to be frugal and able to manage what you have, managing the resources that you have. You have the earth signs ruling over the water houses. So Capricorn on the 4th, Taurus on the 8th, and Virgo on the 12th. So really good decision-making process. You're not ruled by your emotions. You are very calculated and you are very capable of making the right decisions. So Libra rising has a gift of its mental clarity and its ability to also see through any BS. They have a great BS detector. They have a great meter for realizing if they're being lied to or if people are being false to them. Libra rising, kind of like Scorpio rising, has really, really great X-ray vision. Really, really capable of getting to the truth or solving problems. So this person makes a great investigator, a really good, also parent as well. The Libra rising is a really good parenting energy. You put Cancer over the 10th house and Capricorn over the 4th house, it's switching those up. So through the difficulties of their own childhood, they give back to their own children by compensating for what they went through. So if they've had an abusive parent, they will really have learned how to parent without succumbing to abusive tactics or without sort of subconsciously mimicking what their own parents did, like most people did, or most people do. So this rising sign is all about making a switch. weighing the balance. So one thing happens to them. If it's good, they duplicate it. If it's bad, they change it, which is quite rare, actually. A lot of the time, people go through their lives and emotionally mimic what has been bad for them and fall into the same structure emotionally. So if they've been abused, they will abuse, or if they have been a victim, they will victimize. Libra rising is really good at seeing what isn't right and making the appropriate opposite reaction to that. So this is really also a great rising sign, because it really orients the chart in a way that makes sense. Scorpio over the second house, there can be money power issues. So power through money, power through resources, that can be a bit volatile. It's very likely to receive a big inheritance as Libra rising. The idea of family power or dynasty is also a big thing with Libra rising. Again, putting that Scorpio Taurus axis on the second and eighth house. Everything is switched. You know, this is Libra rising. With Aries rising, Libra's opposite, we have the natural wheel. We have everything on its natural house. But with Libra, it's switched. So all of the houses are occupied by their opposites. So opposites attract here, and you see a familiar energy over each house, but it is the opposite. So Scorpio over the second house, Taurus over the eighth house. Libra rising can maybe be a bit too open with its financial matters. Watch out for telling everybody what you have, or for, accidentally having identity theft. This could be something with Libra rising, because if you're too open with your finances, or too open with, the social security number or whatever it is, you could see that people try to take advantage of that. That's not for everyone, though. But Scorpio over the second house, you might really benefit from keeping curious disposition. And what do I mean by that? Kind of being a neutral level of projection. So are you rich? Are you poor? Are you an optimist? Are you a pessimist? Are you, how do you identify in many different ways? It might be good to sort of be neutral. It might be good to sort of be a bit... You could even see androgyny with Libra rising. These people tend to actually look a bit androgynous. So yes, the men have very feminine features, and the women have masculine features, because there's like there's a neutrality to this placement with Libra on the rising sign. There's an inanimate quality to them too. They can kind of come across as cold or uncaring as well. Again, Capricorn over the fourth house, putting all these earth signs onto the water houses gives like a responsibility and a sense of duty before emotion. So they're always going to want to do what they have to do, make ends meet, tie everything up before they get, touchy-feely with things. So yes, I always recommend that Libra rising take some time to just feel their lives, because they can actually really come to a much better understanding of who they are by asking themselves, how do I feel about this house? How do I feel about this family? How do I feel about this relationship? Before it's like, how am I financially benefiting, or how am I, securely benefiting from this? Because without that emotional security, there is never tangible security. So Libra rising has to sometimes learn that the hard way. But when they see that connection, they can really modify their life to really reflect that sense of security without it being, sort of mixed up. What do I mean? Without demanding the financial security before the emotional security, or vice versa. They have to balance it out. Temperance, Libra, the scales. So things can be imbalanced when they come into life, and they kind of walk through their entire life striving for balance. Anything else I want to talk about with Libra rising? They have to really care for their mental health. Pisces over the sixth house can give a predisposition for depression, or even like crying a lot, even if they're not feeling bad about any particular thing. Pisces on the sixth house does make the mundane everyday more emotional. Yet the things that should be super emotional, like a death in the family, or losing something, may not really hit them. It may be a dull note. So the emotional complexes have to really be worked on. They need sometimes to have some therapy, some psychological work, working on themselves, always exercising self-care, self-love, more so than other rising signs. And they can really benefit from, psychic work or psychological work therapy. So good to get a reading, good to find a therapist who works for you to understand how to make your emotions what you need them to be, the reaction that you need. So yeah, work on the emotions. Social butterfly, Libra Rising, you are a social butterfly. Try to find humorous people to be around. It's important, Sagittarius is on the 3rd house, so you need to have humor every day in some way or another. Pisces on the 6th house can also indicate this too. So laughter is your medicine for sure. Okay, Scorpio Rising. Wow, Scorpio Rising, it is a intense, as we know, Scorpio is like the intense sign. I hate to use that word, but it is. These people have a weight about them. They're super magnetic. They are super powerful, super, like a Scorpio Rising person walks into the room and everyone kind of feels a bit faint, or everyone feels a bit like, they can't breathe. The thing about Scorpio Rising is they encourage like the stress response in other people, and they have to really watch out for this. And that is what a lot of their evolution looks like, is dealing with their own heaviness, dealing with their own weight of emotion or weight of being, so that they don't disturb other people unwillingly. Because this is a bit of a disturbing ascendant to have. Other people can feel disturbed for no reason. You might see that you walk into people's lives and everything falls apart. You might see that you start a relationship with someone right before their life completely falls apart, because this placement, as well as a few other Scorpio placements, is like what I call black ointment. I don't know what it's from, but when I was a kid, we used to always have this stuff called black ointment. It's like some kind of herbal concoction, and it was for like any like cuts or like cysts or like pimples, and you would like put it on, and it pulls out like all the poison and like heals it like incredibly. And this rising sign is like a black ointment. So you walk into a room or into other people's life, and you basically pull out all of the poison and pull out all of the toxins, and this makes people have to deal with them. So yes, you can get a very antagonistic reputation if you're not careful, because people will associate you with this. This is also the case for like Sun in the 8th house, Pluto in the 4th house, Pluto in the 8th house, Pluto in the 12th house. There are a lot of other Scorpio placements that will cause this effect, the sort of Scorpio black ointment effect, I like to call it. But yes, this person just wants to have fun. Scorpio Rising, it actually orients the chart in a way that the fire signs are over the earth houses. And this creates, we're not so concerned about security. We're not so concerned about, the tangible world. We want laughter, we want humor, we want fun, we want connections. This rising sign can be seen as a gold digger. It can be seen as, clawing its way to the top, but it's not. It doesn't do this. This is like other people's insecurities coming out, because this sign suffers from being projected onto. That is true. So people see you, Leo on the 10th house, it's very kingly, it's very, noble. Pisces on the 5th house, Aquarius on the 4th house, and they kind of really mold your reputation. So you have to be careful of people manipulating your reputation, or being around the types of people who are very influential, but not at all, wanting any competition, because people will see you very competitively. If you're a female Scorpio rising, or even a male Scorpio rising, you might see that you become friends with a couple, and they're influential or they're prestigious, and one of the people of the couple are suddenly accusing you of sleeping with their spouse or something, or cheating, when you've never been interested, and that's never happened. But it's like a delusional thing, because again, that Pisces, Aries, 5th, 6th house creates a sort of mania about your everyday presence, and your idea of meeting other people, and your idea of creativity and fun. It's a very volatile thing in Scorpio rising. So what happens is people will project onto you, or people will basically have a dream or an apparition about you and see it as true. So people have a gut feeling about you. It's wrong. It's their own insecurity, but they'll make it right. So they'll start to try to manifest that within you. So this is the saddest thing about Scorpio rising, is that other people try to kind of manipulate who you are. And there are a lot of maybe false accusations, or, vilifying that happens, or antagonizing that happens to Scorpio rising. But they tend to actually overcome this really easily. And if you're in a stage where that's happening, it's likely because you're too busy. your mind is not actually thinking about who you are, where you want to be, because with hindsight you would probably look back and say, yeah, I never liked that couple, I never actually wanted to be around them, I was kind of just avoiding being alone, but I made myself kind of interact with them even though I got a bad gut feeling about them, and yes, they did ruin my reputation, but I kind of knew that that would never turn out well, but I didn't trust that. There's this inner dialogue that Scorpio Rising has. Gemini over the 8th house, that's an interesting thing. The inner dialogue, the inner communication process. Huge, huge deal for Scorpio Rising. How do I talk to myself? How do I convince myself to do something? Yes, this rising sign can hear voices. It's very psychic. It's not schizophrenia. I mean, it can predilect itself towards mental illness, but I mean, that's a whole nother video, the idea of like what schizophrenia is, what psychic ability is, all of that. That's another video for another day. But yeah, Gemini over the 8th house, you might have a lot of clairaudience, a lot of, you might get message bubbles or downloads of voices, or, it's mainly just your own voice, your own conscience. So the conscience is very loud. So these people actually have like a pretty big moral compass. And they really do strive to do the right thing and act in integrity. And if they don't, it comes back to haunt them very quickly. Karma's a big, big thing. Cancer over the 9th house. The philosophy and integrity is a big, important thing, probably inherited by the mother. So the maternal line may have a big, either religious or moral background. But, at the bottom of everything with Libra on the 12th house, within the subconscious of the Scorpio rising, is basically, again, like a sacred neutral. So they can see that, what we might interpret as a crime or heinous or bad might not actually be so bad, or what we really play up to be a great thing or a great moral might actually be quite, not good. They can kind of struggle to coordinate this moral compass that I'm speaking about, but nonetheless, it is a really big, important part of their lives. Like morality, ethics, all of those types of things are going to be something that are on the mind of a Scorpio rising quite often to some degree. Seeing things in a sort of hyper spiritual way, actions being seen as something far beyond what the action actually represents, and the interpretation of that and the dialogue within an action. This is all very important within a Scorpio rising spiritual path. And that really, again, comes down to that Gemini over the 8th house. That is a really big deal because it makes the 8th house mercurial, which means that the 8th house, which is the house of, secrets, other people's money, sex, death, taxes, the deepest hidden parts of life, become a very talkative, chatty dialogue, and a very, quick moving, fast paced, front and center, conscious brain activity. So these people can just get a little bit in their heads about things. They can be way too active in the mind. So they have to really calm that mind. Ashwagandha might be good. Any type of like herbal concoctions that are like very safe and very, I don't recommend any type of hallucinogenic, any type of psychedelic, any type of really deep, potent thing for Scorpio rising, because again, their bodies are very sensitive and not that strong. Their their amount that they can take in is smaller than others, because again, Gemini over the 8th house, it makes the body a little bit weak at first, but then with the first Saturn return, it should get stronger, because these people can also be like super strong. Again, Scorpio, it's black or white, either very weak or very strong, or very ill or very healthy. Finding that neutral is the challenge. So super, super powerful placement for sure. Very haunting, very chilling, beautiful. The eyes are so hypnotic. Scorpio rising, very attractive, very fertile, can have many, many children, on purpose or by accident. So they have to definitely watch out for their fertility. I mean, that can be a really great thing, but it can also be something that catches them off guard as well. Especially the men are very, very fertile. So Scorpio rising men can impregnate very easily. So if you are dating a Scorpio rising, be aware of that. But then also the women can get pregnant very easily as well. Again, the Taurus on the 7th house, and the 11th house Virgo, even the 11th 5th house axis, which is the axis of children, is of Pisces and Virgo. So there's a lot of fertility and a lot of creative potential there. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about Sagittarius Rising. Okay, so this is our last fire rising, and if you haven't seen any of the other fire risings in this series yet, yes, the fire rising signs are very blessed and very, just capable of overcoming karmic things. The rising ascendant loves to be in a fire sign because it acclimates the zodiac wheel in a harmonious way, where all of the elements are matching. So Sagittarius rising is beautiful, very attractive, very strong animal magnetism. They can use especially their root energy, their sexual energy in very interesting ways. Everybody wants to be with the Sagittarius rising. These are like the hot people of the zodiac, the people who are, very, very attractive, very, root sacral activated energy. This rising sign, though, usually has certain like really big battles to face. This is sort of like the energy of the warrior. This person has like a lot of fights to engage in, or a lot of battles to face, or mountains to climb, because ambition and rising and moving up into the hierarchy is a very important part of their lives. Yet they look the part of a very happy-go-lucky, uncaring, optimistic, sort of flying by the seat of their pants personality. That's what they look like, but deep down inside, they actually have this incredible ability to like transcend hierarchy and to move through life with, just really climbing the ladder in a quick, meticulous way. And why is that? That is because Virgo rules over their 10th house. So this is the like ladder climbing rising sign. Can move up really quickly in a company, can gain favor really quickly. Networking is great. They have to be careful about being too nitpicky. Actually, Sagittarius rising, we don't think of it this way, but it is a strong nitpicking sign and seen as a nitpicking sign, even if it's not, because again, the Virgo midheaven makes them come off as very like critical, very particular, very meticulous, very, even hypocritical. Okay, because again, Sagittarius rising, there are a lot of placements that make them, easy. Life is natural. Maybe not super quick to practice what I preach. Sagittarius rising has to really be careful of what comes out of the mouth sometimes, because it's not usually a bad thing what they say, and they can be very savage. Like they can like really give people hard-hitting truth. That is something that they are very capable of. The throat chakra is very strong with Sagittarius rising. But they can also suffer from diarrhea of the mouth as well. They can be accidentally toxic without meaning to be, yet they look very critical and very perfectionistic, and they come off as like very, well-spoken, or they're seen as like enforcing this type of standard. The Virgo midheaven gives them great career ability, gives them great money ability, gives them great upward mobility. But when it comes to personal relationships, the Virgo midheaven sometimes gives them a problem, because it can look hypocritical, because they will have this very critical opinion of other people, but towards themselves, they're much more mushy and much more like relaxed and much more easygoing, yet they kind of demand sometimes that the world around them operate in a very meticulous way, and they might look like they're doing it, but anyone who knows them, it doesn't seem that way. So this just kind of, it's not that they're actually hypocritical, it's not that they're actually this way, it's just that there's a bit of a disconnect between what they think they want their life to look like and what they think is right versus what they actually live through. So, I mean, by definition, that is kind of hypocritical, but it's not hypocrisy in the sense that we think that it is. This rising sign also has to be aware of narcissism as well. They can attract narcissistic people really, really easily. Leo rules over the 9th house. The Cancer 8th house is an interesting thing, as well as the Pisces 4th house, because it has made the most mature water sign Pisces reside over the youngest water sign Cancer, and it's put the youngest water sign over Scorpio's dominion. So it's natural, it's harmonious, but there's a sense of the emotions and the ability to deal with conflict or confrontation. It's like it's hazardous. There's a lack sometimes of understanding of why we're in an emotional situation, and there's like a need to confront or conflict with other people in a way that doesn't really acknowledge the self sometimes. So Sagittarius rising has to be very clear on what they want out of life, why they're with the person that they're with, why they're in the emotional situation that they're in. Just because when like conflict gets big, or when there's a big confrontation, Sagittarius rising, it doesn't operate well in confrontation. And that's because of the way the water houses acclimate themselves. They will be quite sensitive, actually, and they will take, like, they won't forget. So this rising sign will not forget anything that's emotional because of the way the water houses are aligned. They will not forgive easily, and they will hold grudges as well, typically. Now, this may change, and it'll depend on where, like, the planets are in their chart. But if you're dating a Sagittarius rising or with a Sagittarius rising, try to really watch out for conflict. If there's a lot of fighting, it's not going to work out, because Sagittarius rising, like all of the fire rising signs to a degree, Leo, Aries, and Sag rising, can be a bit passive-aggressive, again, because of the water houses and how they're aligned. It doesn't want confrontation. It will do anything to avoid confrontation. So all of that, pain or a need for confrontation will come out through roundabout ways that have nothing to do with, what's actually on the line. This rising sign is so good for healthy competition, though. So competitive sports, competitive marketing, competitive careers, it will shine brightly. It will do so good. It will rise quickly. They need to be exercising. Their body is their vessel. They can unlock a lot of secrets about healing and becoming stronger through prioritizing their body and, working on their endurance. Again, that Cancer 8th house, it needs to get out of its head. It needs to get out of the emotions. It has to prioritize time for stillness and for complete solitude. But even more than that, it needs like exercise, and it needs use of the body, because that is a big red flag, as they can get bottled up and be like a mushroom cloud, like an explosion. Like, we might think of like Scorpio Rising or I don't know, like Aries Rising or something to be like the temperamental rising signs, but actually that would be more of a Sag Rising thing, and Leo Rising to a degree, Capricorn Rising even, which we're about to get into. But yes, this rising sign. What else is really good about Sagittarius rising? Really good social ability. Again, speaking really good. Aquarius over the 3rd house. They have an unconventional way of speaking, an unconventional way of connecting with other people, so they can build a great support network. Social butterfly. Socially, this rising sign will tend to not have any problems. Not a lot of social anxiety, not a lot of social fear. They need that solitude. If they overuse their social capacity, then they're going to feel drained, like most people. But yeah, they have a really good natural ability for socializing. I'm just looking at the other placements here. 11th house as Libra, so collectively attractive. So these are going to be the trendsetters of the zodiac, the fashionable people, people. Society will look to the Sag rising to find the next trends, the next fads. So they'll always be one step ahead of styles. And through that, they will be able to attract, wealthy partners or, prestigious partners. And yeah, but it is really hard for Sagittarius rising to have lasting relationships. Again, because what you see is not what you get. Again, this person looks very happy-go-lucky, very fashionable, very lighthearted. So attractive. Maybe they live in like, a really nice apartment or really nice house or really nice country or something. And yet once they are known at a deep level, that is very different. It is a very emotional person, very self-concerned, not in a bad way. I don't mean like selfish or narcissistic necessarily, although it can be. But the thing is that they tend to attract narcissists as well. So there can be a big clash of ego or a big clash of emotions just when relationships get deep, because that's the only problem area for Sag rising, is the deep romantic or family relationships, the everyday relationships, the friendships, the social network, the social hierarchy, job relationships. Those are all really good for this sign. But when it gets deep down, the people who know it unlike any others, that's where we can find a little bit of trauma for this sign. So it just has to really work to find consistency and to not fear confrontation quite so much, because what it needs to worry more about really the lack of confrontation, and how the desire for confrontation manifests into something that is actually much more difficult to deal with. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful rising sign though. Good, good rising sign. Capricorn Rising, let's talk about it. Let me flip my page here. I have an outline that I made where I've like done all the house systems to quickly refer to. So Capricorn Rising, this is a solid, solid rising sign. Probably one of the better Earth rising signs to have, because these people are always going to be concerned about security, really, really good relationship with money. They will avoid debt like the plague. They will avoid, you know, spending more than they have, and this applies to money, time, and energy. They're really good at organizing how they spend, because that Virgo ninth house, the ninth house being philosophy, your ideas towards life, your mantras of life is ruled by Virgo. So that's a very financial and spending time, energy, money sign. So we have a philosophy about how we spend as a Capricorn rising that really gives us a leg up in life. This rising sign has to be careful about being too frugal, though, as it can be. So by saving most of the money that it ever makes, or by never rewarding itself, it can get too comfortable and choose to stop progressing in life. So, maybe they can work and have a quite good, like, middle-class job or something with which they save most of their money, and then they try to retire early. But through having all that security or all of that safety, there's no pressure to push further, when it's like they could have done their own business, or they could have gotten all the way to the top of something and made 10 times the amount of money that they ever did make. They choose not to do that because they've accumulated enough by saving everything and having in a way a false sense of security. So this rising sign has to watch out for false sense of security. We have Cancer over the 7th house, Pisces over the 3rd house. So the communication, the marriage, the contracts in life are watery. These are like the ties that bind. This rising sign, as a person, will have long, long relationships, long careers. It's not a flighty rising sign. So this isn't a sign that kind of jumps from one career to the next, one relationship to the next. In the long run, this rising sign strives for completion and strives for the long haul. So yeah, they have to really make sure that that's right for them. So yeah, you can definitely see with this rising sign being in the wrong career all your life, being in the wrong relationship all of your life. The Uranus Aquarius energy is muted in this chart. You have Aquarius over the 2nd house. So Aquarian Uranian energy is forced to operate in matters of material, matters of tangible assets, matters of organizing, matters of attracting security into your life. It's a very boring house for Aquarius to reside over. So that is a sadness of this rising sign, is that some of the spark or some of the zest for life, it just has to be channeled into what it might consider to be more boring material things. But through this, of course, it does achieve that material stability that most other people can only dream of, which does have value. But will this rising sign allow itself to have fun and enjoy its life? Will it allow itself to live out its entire life in the right career, in the right relationship? Because the long-term stability is really good, but sometimes they just really struggle with maintaining what doesn't need maintained in their life, so they just have to work on that. But Capricorn Rising, it's a solid rising sign. If you're dating a Capricorn Rising, or if you're with a Capricorn Rising, they will be very loyal, and they will really try to maintain you and sustain you. So don't take that for granted. This rising sign can be taken for granted quite easily, because they do kind of nitpick a little bit in places that some people are sensitive to. So they can sort of be the secret protagonist, where they might be vilified or not loved, but yet what they offer and what they actually represent is something very needed. So yeah, Capricorn Rising, you just have to really be passionate as well. Leo ruling over the 8th house over Scorpio's house. There's a big passion for something that's a little bit secretive. Okay, Aquarius Rising. Hi, Aquarius Rising. I hope that you are having a wonderful day. I have a nice cup of tea here. I'm excited to talk about your energy. Aquarius Rising is quite separate from a lot of the rest of society. You guys have an interesting take on the world. You see the world through different eyes, through different more eccentric lens. You have incredible Sagittarius over the 11th house, which means that your connection to society and your connection to culture is abundant and expansive. So you're a trendsetter, and you are very fashionable, very rebellious even, and really setting the tone for the generations to come. So yes, Aquarius Rising has a bit of a burden to carry because it sets the tone for oncoming generations. You are the antithesis of the status quo, and you are kind of here to shake things up. You're kind of here to, you know, show tradition a new perspective. So the merging of tradition and new perspective, because Aquarius Rising actually has both of these. You have Capricorn ruling over the 12th house, so you most likely have grown up with some representation of tradition or status quo, or, you know, contemporary living that is a bit traumatic or a bit wounding to the subconscious. So you're very unconventional. It's good to pursue unconventional things, maybe to be self-employed or to be able to work with your own schedule, as you have Cancer ruling over your 6th house, which means that every single day needs to have some idea of comfort. You have to really pay attention to your health. You have to really pay attention to what is uncomfortable in your life, in your daily life, in your lifestyle, because breaking with the comfort zone can actually be not so rewarding for this rising sign. Despite really setting a different trend and maybe going against the grain, this rising sign has a big demand for comfort and a big demand for self-maintenance and daily self-maintenance. Also, Aquarius Rising sometimes can be quite mysterious to other people. You have Scorpio on the midheaven, on the 10th house, which means that you're kind of seen like a Scorpio. People might guess your zodiac sign is Scorpio. You might love the color black. You might love the color red. You might be very haunting and very cold as well. This is a very Plutonian version of Scorpio energy, as Aquarius can be kind of icy and frigid itself at times. You know, at the same time, you've got that Leo on the 7th house, so in love or in romance, people will actually see that you're very warm, very kind, very giving, very, like, hot-spirited, but perhaps on the outside, it would be nice to work on, you know, conveying that warmth as well, because there can be a perspective or an impression of frigidness or coldness coming from Aquarius Rising, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, this can be like a huge advantage in career. Your poker face is like excellent as Aquarius Rising, basically. But in like a day-to-day life where you're trying to maybe build a network or trying to I don't know, rise in a social atmosphere, it might be good to really warm it up and wear warmer colors, you know, smile more. Not maybe you guys get told that, like, you should smile. Like, that's not what I mean, but actually smiling can help to affect the chemistry in the body as well. So not to say that y'all need to be fake, but finding things that make you smile, finding things that make you laugh, that bring out, like, your incredible sense of humor is good. Maybe not so great to really focus on, you know, types of media that are just about doom and gloom or worry or power. Try to introduce humor, fun, laughter, comedy into your life so that you're not overwhelmed with like a stark, austere nature, because this can happen for Aquarius Rising, and it can on one hand be needed and in certain power situations, but on the other hand it can also prevent those situations from working out like you had hoped that they would. So it's kind of one of those things that it's like neither here nor there. It's kind of like a rock and a hard place in a way, you know, whether you come off as cold or warm, but it's a big deal for Aquarius Rising. It's not like a little thing. People will experience you as extremely one or the other, like a very cold person or very warm person. So you might shift back and forth, but it'll depend on your chart, and it'll depend on who you are as a person, how that channels through. But I definitely recommend like humor. Your humor will get you a lot further than your what do I want to say, your position or your authority or your platform, for example. Okay, Pisces Rising. Let's talk about Pisces Rising now. Okay, I love Pisces Rising. It's kind of a fun house type of energy. It's kind of a maze to navigate because the Ascendant is reversing everything else in the chart in a way with this placement, but it's fun nonetheless. It's kind of like the energy of the Hanged Man in tarot. Even though there's a suspension, even though there's a maybe even a stagnation at times, it's like there's a fun circus-like atmosphere that you're kind of, you know, hanging upside down and it's a party. So yeah, Pisces Rising. You've got to foster a niche as a Pisces Rising, and this is like a popular thing that everybody thinks that everybody needs right now. This is not actually the case, but as Pisces Rising, yes, you need a niche, you need a support network, you need basically like a net. So you're like walking a tightrope as Pisces Rising. Basically, you need a net underneath to catch that, because Pisces Rising will have like various falls in their life and various like, you know, falls and rises, as all the water rising signs tend to have. You know, it's not so steady. It's like walking a tightrope. So yeah, Cancer ruling over your 5th house. You will really make great friends with people who are in your niche, or people who do what you do. If it's kind of eccentric, you need to kind of get out of the suburban sprawl, or out of the traditional hierarchy, kind of like Aquarius Rising. You have to kind of beware of being too status quo, or beware of being too connected to tradition. Not that it's a bad thing. Ancestry and tradition as a whole, as a collective, as a macrocosmic thing, it's important right now, but for Pisces Rising, it's not so important right now. You guys have an incredible Sagittarius midheaven, so you look very happy-go-lucky, you look very jovial, you look like you have no worries, and this can kind of be frustrating for you, because it might be difficult for people to recognize that you're in pain, or to recognize that you're having an emotional hard time in any way. So Pisces Rising can kind of get upset at people for not realizing that they're hurt, or not realizing that they're going through something difficult, because you're so empathetic, but people may not necessarily be empathetic to you, because again, Sagittarius on the midheaven creates an appearance of having things together, of being very happy, and of being very spontaneous, and having things easy. So it's not the case for Pisces Rising. But you have to be able to communicate. Okay, so 3rd house ruled by Taurus. A really, really great rulership over the 3rd house. So your voice is beautiful, your communicative ability is beautiful, yet there can be a tendency towards silence. This is true. Scorpio on the 9th house. You could be the powerful silent person, the quiet silent person, but you need to really work on communication and communicating your feelings, because people will really start to feel for you. Like, you can really inspire empathy or inspire motivation in other people through your words. That's where your power comes from as a Pisces Rising, is in your communicative ability. So I definitely recommend like even like speech lessons, or voice lessons, or singing, or something that acting, something that lets you freely exercise your vocal capacity in an artistic way is the way to go for a Pisces Rising person. Okay, so a home is not where you find peace and quiet. Gemini on the 4th house, maybe after the first Saturn return and you're living, you know, by yourself, or you have like bought your own home. In this case, maybe the home can be better, but the family home, or the homes that you have vicariously with other people, it's not a source of peace or rest for you. This is like a constant chattiness, a constant loudness around you. This is like a constant you know, people are awake when other people are asleep, and vice versa. It's discordant in the home. Even in the early childhood, maybe there are like a lot of siblings, even twins. Maybe you have a twin. I mean, not many of you will, but a Pisces rising is a common rising sign for twins, or triplets, because this has put the Gemini sign onto the family house, individual self house, so we can have like very close brothers and sisters, or twins, etc. But yeah, that kind of makes it a struggle to find that quiet, which is why you might start seeking quiet or solitude in public. You might sort of be in school growing up, or in college, or in your job. You might be very quiet. You might be very you know, not chatty, not communicative, because the early experience of home would have been very loud and very chatty and very overwhelming. So you're still kind of escaping from that. So really the key for Pisces Rising is to be a homeowner, or to create a home in their adult life where they can have that calmness, so that they don't turn off any opportunities that they might have to make really good friends by needing to always be reserved in public. So yeah, that's the main thing to watch out for, because again, it's kind of confusing to people who are potential, you know, friends or romantic partnerships. Again, to have that Sag midheaven, which is very happy-go-lucky, very fun, very popular, very adventurous. That's the impression that you give off. Yet that Scorpio 9th house, which again is a social house, it makes you, again, that quiet, powerful person. So there's a conflict there. There's something that might seem a bit bipolar even to other people. So you have to really watch out for how you portray yourself and how you give different vibes to different people. Capricorn on the 11th house, I like that a lot. Because you're not going to be super swayed by societal brainwashing or by societal themes. It's not going to really affect you that badly. Your life is going to be unconventional, and your life is you're not a result of the society, basically, as Pisces rising, which is a nice asset. Also, the subconscious is calm enough. You have Aquarius on the 12th house, so there's like a kind of an acceptance that, well, I went through that trauma that happened, and yeah, maybe I'm a little bit, mixed up from it, but that's okay. I'm going to work through it. I'm going to keep moving. You're not a victim to your emotions as Pisces rising, which is something that I respect about Pisces rising. You guys never sort of use your past or your turmoil or your difficulty as an excuse not to thrive in life, and you have to remember that. That's always at least a goal for sure as Pisces rising. The turmoil, the pain, the fear, all of that, it's not going to prevent you from living a solid and capable life. Something that you want to watch out for is super controlling partnerships. Virgo over the 7th house, it gives the possibility for marriages, contractual agreements, business partnerships, long-term romantic relationships with somebody who's quite controlling or quite nitpicky. When this plays out positively, this is somebody who can kind of come in and shed light on some of the details of your life that have gone unseen or unilluminated. But when this channels out in a difficult way, it is, yes, somebody who wants to come in and live vicariously through you. Somebody who always wanted to be, I don't know, blonde and won't do it themselves, so they convince you to go blonde by convincing you that your current hair color looks bad. This type of thing. Or, somebody who always wanted to try some type of drug, but knows that it won't work for them, so they encourage you to do it. Like, people with Pisces live vicariously through Pisces. So again, this can be a positive thing. This isn't always bad, but it can be very, very bad if it's not seen. So Pisces, you don't want to be a puppet, basically. Pisces rising. Pisces rising can be a puppet if it's not careful. Don't let people live vicariously through you, and don't let people control you. It's really that simple. Leo over the 6th house, your health will shine brightly. Great health, which is another thing that can contribute to, thinking, oh, I'm indestructible. Oh, I'm invincible. I can do anything. I can stay up 3 days in a row and accomplish all these things. Or I can, try all of these dangerous things and not have a repercussion. The health is good. The endocrine health is good. The hormonal health is good. You have a bit of a guardian angel when it comes to your health. So if you've had health problems or dis-ease, it's a big sign that you pushed way too hard or that you had way too much stimulus around you and you need to seek the center. Solitary experience of healing will be important if that is the case, but I doubt that it is for most of you. And you have a good natural knowledge of what is or is not for you as a Pisces rising. Libra over the 8th house, it gives actually good discretion and balance relating to the darker aspects of life. So you should be quite adept at healing from any depression or anxiety or paranoia or insomnia. That you should really be able to hone in on your power and overcome it. So that's what Pisces is faced with, is a lot of honing in on their power and facing that they can heal, that they can overcome, and then it's almost as simple as that for them. But yeah, know what is and isn't for you, Pisces. You'll know it very immediately. You have a great gut instinct, yet sometimes this rising sign tends to go against that and I know this isn't right for me, but why would I not do it? It's that type of thing, and it's a big question mark, and it kind of distances you from the people who matter. So Pisces rising, just hone in on that eccentric flair. You're, again, Sag on the midheaven, very popular, very eccentric, very traveled, very worldly, and that's a good thing to strive for. Mixing that with your emotional availability, with your empathetic capabilities, you see a really, really attractive person who cannot fail come forward. So that is Pisces rising for you. And with that, we have now concluded the Ascendant series. Thank you so much for those of you who have been able to watch or watch it all the way through. I so appreciate that. If you guys wanted to learn more about the moon signs, I have a video that is identical to this that goes through the moon signs. So I will link that in the middle of this video. And then if you wanted to support my channel or see more in depth on moon signs, I have an ebook on Amazon about moon signs called Moon Symbols, an astrological guide to healing your moon. So I will link that below, as well as my other links, my social media, my Patreon page. It is all there. So hit the like button if you loved this video, if you would like more content, if you would like a Nadir IC series, even a Midheaven or Descendant series that is in this vein, hit the thumbs up button, share this, subscribe. That's how I know that this was a good topic and to keep doing things like it. So thanks again. We will be talking soon. This has been Sky here. Much love. Bye.